Thank you very much. Allow me, the speakers which are yet to come, to first go back to the expert from Afghanistan, Nazir Kabiri, who is with us now, and I request him to take 4 minutes or so to explain to us, to help us to understand how Afghanistan looks at this crisis and what Afghanistan is doing in terms of joining in the regional cooperation efforts and the various dimensions of the problem that were outlined by us in the beginning.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Chair, Ambassador Bhatia. Thank you very much for the floor. And I wanted to thank Dr. Datta and rest of our colleagues for organizing this. And I apologize for being late. Things are a little always unpredictable in Afghanistan. So with this, I want to touch upon 3 issues here, Your Excellency, Ambassador. First, I will set the country context. Second is I will speak a little bit about the economic measures. And third, I will give a regional perspective. If you may, with the country context, the country has been going through 4 major but simultaneous crises, being political, security, returnees, and economic. So with all these 4 crises happening at the same time, the corona pandemic is exacerbating the situation. The conflict is intensified, and the pandemic is already complicating the war and peace process. Similarly, with the complicated context, the situation in Afghanistan is more delicate than rest of the countries in the region, and it requires special measures to fight coronavirus. On the pandemic, almost all corona cases imported from Iran, the epicenter. Over 200,000 Afghan returnees and workers and immigrants fled the country back home during the months of March and April. With the first case registered in late February, the cases in Afghanistan progressed relatively slowly during the months of March and April, reaching to a total of around 2,350 official tested cases, while there is, of course, under testing and under reporting everywhere. With this, the government, I think, expects sharp increases in positive cases over the next couple of weeks. Your Excellency, Ambassador, in terms of the response, and in spite of the odds in Afghanistan, the country response has been fairly acceptable. In general sense, we note the following. 1, early implementation of measures in terms of lockdown and social distancing. Kabul has been in lockdown for almost over a month, and other major cities bordering Iran, for example, Herat, similarly has been in lockdown for over a month. Second, effective national public communication and public awareness campaigns has been in place. Third, delegated authorities at the provincial level are given. Fourth, isolation centers are set up all across the country. And fifth, but nonetheless, again, Afghanistan's poor healthcare system remains a serious source of concern. With this, I move into the economic measures. And first, I want to put on the record that the country has already been under severe economic distress. Dependency on aid is as such that 75% of public spending depends on foreign aid. The pandemic is already affecting aid predictability. Now with the corona shock, as we have already projected at our institute, the economy has likely entered a recession period. The economy will contract by 3 to 5% in a moderate scenario and by 9.9% in an acute scenario, a situation similar to Iran. Inflationary pressures will mount in 2020 as a result of disruption in trade and supply chains. A sharp decline in revenue is expected in 2020. Shortfalls in revenue will expose the country to a fiscal crisis. Unemployment and poverty is at rise. Projections by the Institute estimates about 8 million additional people are at risk of falling below the poverty line. With the new addition, the total poverty rate will stand 80%. With 80% of population pushed under the poverty line, yet except for a program called bread distribution, there are no major social transfers yet. Policy response has not yet reached daily wages and vulnerable population by means of cash transfer to prevent them from falling further deeper into the poverty line. Food distress is a serious issue. And again, around 7.5 million children, as reported by the Save the Children this morning, are in danger of starvation. And lastly, on the economics, a potential premature withdrawal of the US forces will further exacerbate the situation. In terms of the measures taken, we are thankful to the generous support of the international community. There are pledges made by the World Bank, EDB, WHO, and of course, a credit facility of $220 million by IMF. But again, budget reallocation and repurposing is underway. Alternative means of finance in Afghanistan, Dr. Rehan, is not an option. Domestic borrowing is extremely limited. And government is working with the humanitarian agencies to develop a relief package in cash or in kind, but that yet has to be tested and implemented. The Institute was amongst the first to project economic impacts of the virus. Moving forward, we are going to update our projections and analysis. On the regional perspective, Your Excellency, Ambassador, and audience and colleagues and counterparts, our understanding is that poverty in this region will worsen the pandemic. Poor and millions of daily wagers cannot observe the lockdown for too long. As it has been the case in Kabul and elsewhere, people are already breaking the lockdowns because they are fighting two deaths, corona and hunger. So they obviously, spread the virus by not adhering to the lockdown anymore. The second issue is that our understanding is, in general sense, provided we are in the Western sub-region in South Asia, our understanding is that the chances that the COVID-19 pandemic going to unlock the full potential of regional cooperation remains low. The potential dynamics of the situation in the region is as such that full and durable regional cooperation is not applicable in foreseeable future. Political rivalry in the region is deep-rooted. If the virus gets out of control in Afghanistan, so will the country. Failure in Afghanistan will have serious implications on the region. Important to keep the borders open with Afghans and let trade flow. The situation in Afghanistan required a collective attention by all. Fighting corona and post-corona recovery in Afghanistan calls upon all of us in the region to collaborate and assist as much as possible. And lastly, to start with this part of this regional cooperation, let us put our regional differences aside when it comes to the Afghan peace process. This is immediate. A peaceful Afghanistan is in the best interest of all. I thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much for an outstanding presentation. Dear friend, Afghanistan is a very important neighbor for all of us. Just because Afghanistan geographically is located on the periphery of South Asia, quite often many of us are unable to fathom the depth of the issues there and its impact, not merely on Afghanistan, not merely on its immediate neighborhood, but on entire South Asia. You have done us a great favor by pointing out very succinctly and very frankly the problems affecting the country in the present situation, the direct impact on the economy, and also pointing out the regional context in graphic detail. I really thank you very deeply and very sincerely.